With all of the gift giving and family gatherings and social pressures that come along with the holiday season, it is no wonder so many of us ADHD moms experience rejection-sensitive dysphoria this time of year. So if you find yourself ruminating far too long on a comment that your auntie made, or second-guessing a gift you gave because it didn't get the reaction you were expecting, today's episode is for you. Let's discuss what RSD is, what might trigger it for us ADHD moms during the holiday season, and some coping strategies you can employ to either stop the spiral or maybe even stop it before it starts. All of that on today's episode of the ADHD Mompreneur. And really quick, before we dig into today's topic, I'd like to introduce myself in case you are new to the ADHD Mompreneur. My name is Christy Lingo, and I am an executive function and accountability coach for ADHD mom business owners looking to understand their unique brains so they can juggle their business life with their family life while feeling successful at both. To learn more about me and my coaching services, stop by my website at theadhdmompreneur.com. And while you're there, be sure to pick up my free essential checklist for ADHD mompreneurs to help you stay on track and remember all the steps for regular activities we perform as business owners. So be sure to stop by the ADHDmompreneur.com today to check out my coaching services and pick up your free checklists. Rejection-sensitive dysphoria was one of those aha moments when I started deep diving ADHD symptoms and behaviors after my diagnosis. Learning about RSD helped me understand better why I felt the way I felt and behaved the way I behaved far too often. If you're unfamiliar with RSD, it's an intense emotional pain and reaction to perceived criticism, negativity, or failure that can feel like it's unbearable. In fact, the word dysphoria in rejection-sensitive dysphoria comes from the ancient Greek word that means strongly uncomfortable or difficult to bear. And while I am sure there are plenty of instances in the neurotypical population where they experience emotional pain or discomfort due to receiving criticism or thinking that they failed, those of us with ADHD feel those feelings much deeper, much stronger, and for much longer than our neurotypical counterparts. And why are we feeling those feels so strongly and so deeply? Well, as with many things ADHD, it comes down to executive function. The executive function of emotional regulation, to be exact. When our emotions spike due to feeling like we are rejected or criticized or that we've failed, it can be much harder for those of us with ADHD to regulate our emotions, especially if our dopamine is running low. And just a quick refresher on dopamine and executive function. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter or a chemical that carries messages around in your brain. While dopamine carries messages to all different parts of your brain, the part that we are most interested in when it comes to ADHD is the messages it's transmitting to and from the prefrontal cortex, which is where executive function happens. Now, when our dopamine levels are low or slow on the uptake, our executive function is starting already behind the 8 ball, meaning it is harder for us to focus, start tasks, organize and plan, and control our emotions. Meanwhile, we've got this other part of the brain called the limbic system, whose key function is to regulate emotions and behaviors. And a main component of the limbic system is the amygdala, which is responsible for the fight or flight reflex that we experience in stressful situations. When our emotions are activated by something like heightened social interactions or exclusion from a group or a less than ideal interaction with a friend, family member, or random stranger in public, both our limbic system and our prefrontal cortex kick into gear. But if our prefrontal cortex is under dopamine, there's a very good chance that the limbic system takes over. This amygdala hijack can lead to overreaction, poor decision making, and an increase in mental health issues like depression or anxiety. And since during the holidays, we have increased social interactions and gift-giving expectations and meetups with that auntie who can't seem to stop herself from criticizing something about you every time you see her, it's no wonder our RSD can feel like it's in overdrive. But this year, instead of spiraling and ruminating on situations and conversations for far too long, let's figure out some ways to cope with or anticipate situations that may trigger our RSD so that we can limit the amount that it impacts our day-to-day life. And my first strategy for you is to reevaluate and reframe. So let's start by going back to that discussion we just had about the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. As with so many ADHD coping skills, the better awareness you can develop around the way you behave and react, the better the coping skills that you put into place are going to work. There's a very good chance that while your head is starting to spin, you are going to have a thought cross your mind like, why am I reacting so strongly to this situation? That is your prefrontal cortex trying to muscle its way into the conversation so that you utilize your thinking and rational side of your brain over the emotional and reactive side. If we use that message of why am I reacting the way that I am reacting as a springboard for our prefrontal cortex and evaluating the situation from our thinking brain, we may be able to slow down or stop the emotional spiral. If we can take the awareness that we are creating around the emotional brain overpowering the thinking brain and boost the thinking brain with messages like, I'm going to be okay, I've experienced negativity or criticism or failure in the past, this may be the first step in stopping or at least slowing down your RSD spiral. Come up with your own version of a mantra or mantras and repeat it over and over so that it becomes part of your thinking brain. Maybe write it on a small piece of paper and stick it in your pocket before you head to an event where you feel like you might be triggered. Or write it on the lock screen of your phone so that every time you open up your phone, you see that positive mantra. You could even record it as a voice memo and listen to it in the situations when you feel like your emotions are being activated. The goal is to reduce the amount of pull your emotional brain has on a situation and amplify and strengthen your prefrontal cortex and your emotional regulation. And just a heads up, in case you are like me and it took close to 40 years for you to realize that not everybody's reaction to negativity and criticism was just like you, it can take time for you to rewire your brain for these reactions. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that you might need to stick with it for a little while in order to see the results that you're looking for. Which means you might need some tools in your toolbox, like our next tactic, which is make some space. If there was a tornado warning, I would guess that all of you would take some sort of steps to protect yourself from the things that were whirling around so you would experience the least amount of damage possible. And when your emotions are whirling around, it may be a sign that you need to create some space or protect yourself from what is triggering those emotions. You might want to create space from the trigger. If a comment or situation triggers that feeling of anxiety in your chest, take a step back and try not to respond right away. If possible, excuse yourself and take a little time to cool off or wind down. Or if it's something that's online, close the laptop or put the phone down and resist the urge to text back or comment right away. It can also help to create some space from the thought that you're having. Another way to bring your thinking brain into the equation is by thinking about something else. Try refocusing on something that you feel is positive, or call a friend whose voice cheers you up. Get a hug from your kids or your spouse. Take a walk and notice decorations or landscaping in the neighborhood that you're in. The whole idea is to create space in your brain from whatever the triggering thought was and refocus that energy on something that you find to be positive. You may also need to protect the space that you need. There may be times during the holiday season where you can actually stop the spiral before it starts by saying no to events or activities that may trigger your RSD. Or if you feel like you absolutely must attend the event or activity that may be triggering, I am giving you permission to set a boundary around what you will and will not discuss with the people that are there. It can help if you develop and practice a boundary protecting statement before the event. Something along the lines of, I'm choosing to focus on celebrating right now rather than discussing things like ADHD or politics or religion or child rearing. And my final tactic to help you cope with RSD during the holiday season is to reduce and refuel. Sensory overload and overstimulation can wreak havoc on your executive function and dopamine levels. And what is the holiday season if not 2 months full of sensory overload and overstimulation? Which is why reducing your exposure to overstimulation can be key in reducing your emotional response. There are bound to be triggering events that you cannot say no to. So help to protect yourself by evaluating your schedule in advance and maybe making different decisions about how you spend your time and energy the days leading up to this event that may be emotionally reactive for you. Along with reducing the dopamine sapping activities on your schedule, it's important for you to carve out time to recover and recharge during the holiday season. Whether it's short little spurts of self-care every day or regularly scheduled time for you to do something that you love, it's really important for you to take care of you so that you can take care of literally everything else. I hope I've given you some insight into how and why you experience RSD, as well as some ways that you may be able to reduce or avoid experiencing it this holiday season. And if you've got more questions about RSD or any other ADHD-related topic that you'd like me to discuss on a future episode, drop that in the comments because I am starting to create my schedule for the beginning of 2026. And don't forget to hit the like, follow, or subscribe button so you won't miss any of these upcoming episodes, like next time, which will be my final episode for 2025, where we will discuss goal-setting strategies going into the new year. Until then, keep making your ADHD journey part of your success story. If you're a business-owning mom with ADHD, you're going to need to grab my free, customizable essential checklists for ADHD mompreneurs by visiting bit.ly/checklists for ADHD mompreneurs or by following the link in the episode description. Do it now before you forget. Until next time,